Did you know that you can play massive Kahoot games using the internet and streaming technology? Today's guest, George Pearce, talks about how he streams Kahoot games, handles security and privacy, fights bots that allow cheating and attack his Kahoot games, and also how he works to deal with lag to make game competitions equitable, even when hundreds of miles separate the learners. He also shares the software he uses and tips to get started. You'll be able to use what you learn for any multiplayer gaming you want to hold across your school, district, or even across the world. This is episode 728, Creating Massive Kahoot Games.
Welcome to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast, hosted by author, educator, speaker, and mom, the Cool Cat Teacher, Vicki Davis.
Hey everybody, Advancement Courses Tournament of Teachers Challenge is back. It's featuring everything we miss most and least about pre-pandemic teaching life. So stay tuned. At the end of the show, you can learn how to enter to win up to $1,000 in prizes. Today we're talking with George Pearce from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, who teaches grades 7 and 8 students math, science, and STEM. And George, I was just fascinated when I saw on Twitter all these invitations you have for this big, massive Kahoot game. What have you invented?
Once COVID started, I realized that there's lots of moments that was missing from our school day, lots of joyful moments. So I reached out to a few teachers that I knew just to play a inter-school Kahoot game. It was only a handful of teachers at first, and it was huge numbers of kids, like between 10 teachers, there was a couple hundred kids, and it was a blast. So I thought, we can scale this and make it into something epic. And it really just sort of snowballed from there. And before Christmas break here in Winnipeg, we had a Kahoot that maxed out the Kahoot service. They have a 2,000 player limit for their games, and I had 5,000 players try and join a game all at the same time.
So you're the one who breaks the Kahoot server. So what kind of Kahoots are you playing? What are the topics?
It started off pretty open and friendly, just general trivia and brain teasers, and such a following. I can actually tailor it more to my learners because, since I'm the teacher and I have kids, I have to make sure they're receiving what they need from it. So I've connected with a huge number of 7-8 teachers from across sort of central and western Canada, and we've been playing Kahoots together, just a few since the new year has come. And I actually have one on the 28th tomorrow, and it's going to have some Bell Let's Talk subject material in it, and then some 7-8 fractions and math content and some science outcomes as well. And I have about 300 teachers on the invite list for that event.
Oh my goodness. Now, how many questions would you have?
What I like to do is keep the Kahoots sort of short and sweet, because there often is moments where players can get kicked out or where teachers can come and go throughout the event. So I keep them about 10 to 15 questions long, which takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'll play another game with a different subject material. And so when I do these live streams on YouTube, that's how teachers are joining. They'll play 1 or 2 games and maybe not all the whole hour and a half event, but some teachers definitely stay the whole time and play all 4 games and between 10 and 15 questions per game.
So what's the setup on your end? Obviously you have a Kahoot. Are you having to pay for a top end? I mean, you're going up to 2,000.
That's a good question. It was months ago when I started just with my class. I was just doing the free account. And then when I started getting bigger, I paid for the service. And that big event I did in December, where it was 5,000 people that joined, Kahoot actually reached out to me and they said, what was happening here? Why did you have 5,000 people try and join a game? And they said, this is great. And we talked and we had a Skype call, and they said, you know what, would you like to be a Kahoot ambassador and continue doing this and representing our brand? So they actually refunded me my money, which is
cool.
So nice of them.
Awesome.
And they sent me a cool t-shirt too. So that was really nice of them.
So you've got the Kahoot, the pro version.
Yeah.
On the computer side, how are you streaming it to YouTube?
Okay, so this is something that is always a very adult question. They're like, I don't know how you do that. But if you asked a kid, they'd be like, oh, I know what he's doing, because they are all about streaming on Twitch and YouTube. And so I use a program called OBS software. It's called Open Broadcast Software, so OBS Studio. And it's one of those programs that's low floor, high ceiling. So you can get into it, download it for free. You can just do really simple stuff with it. and it's a great program. Or you can really get into it and start downloading add-ons and all sorts of cool transitions and having multiple screens. And it's really, really powerful screen capturing and streaming software.
So you just do that and stream it to YouTube.
That's right. So it captures my screen and my video camera and gives me the ability to transition from scene to scene. So one scene has my screen and me in the corner, and the other screen has like just me big in the screen for when I'm sort of talking in between games and introducing the games. And then of course I need to get my information from YouTube to encode to their servers. And it's not really complicated, but it definitely takes a little bit of research.
The other part that makes me curious is, I ask my students to join with their real name, or at least their first name. You could get kids joining the Kahoot, with maybe inappropriate names or their real name, and you might not want that. What's your guidance to teachers about the names of their students?
That's a good question, actually. So usually when I organize these games, I have the teachers, when I send out my organizing emails, I have them instruct their children to choose a name that's appropriate and then include their school initials at the back, just so they can cheer each other on as they move up and down the scoreboard and they can see that. The second thing is I actively go through and when you click on a name, it'll boot them out. So before I show a game plan, I usually say, like, remember, if you choose an inappropriate name and I see it, I'm going to boot you out, which isn't a perfect system because there's so many students. And then my final warning is if you get on the leaderboard, which is very obvious for everyone to see, and I see it and I'll make a judgment and I'll boot you off. So it's kind of if you're serious about playing, don't choose this inappropriate name because you could get booted out mid-game and lose your ability to finish the game.
So are there any other security or privacy or cautions you would have if other teachers want to start doing this?
Yeah, it's more on the other end of trolling. There's abilities and software out there to flood a game and send bots in. And there's also ability to cheat in Kahoot. And this is just easily acquired software online. So I'm testing some software that prevents it from happening. So it really ruins the user experience when students, it's called botting, I guess, when you bot a game. And so there's some software that you can download that helps limit some of the ability to do that. But it's not offered by Kahoot. It's offered by other people who have just designed it online, which is kind of interesting.
So basically they've got bots joining the game and then just picking random answers, and then it fills up with not real people.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Which when you do it live in public, sometimes that happens because people get a lot of shameful joy, I suppose, from ruining other people's fun. It has happened to me, and there are ways to prevent it through the Kahoot platform, but it limits and makes it more difficult to log into the game.
Yeah.
There's a secondary passcode, and it just ruins the user-friendly experience and makes it a little bit harder to get into the game.
So how about the cheating in Kahoot? I mean, of course, kids can look at each other's screens when you're in the same classroom, but
yeah, that's right.
Is there software to do that?
Yeah, there'll just be an answer. It'll just figure out the program that Kahoot uses, and then it'll choose the right answer. And so that's...
Well, we don't want to tell them how to do it, but we just want to know that there is one out there.
Yes, it does happen. And the software that I'm using, that's a third party, like not made by Kahoot, it basically limits any answer that happens in under 1 second. So if it answers too quickly, because they don't even see the question until it's a few seconds delayed. So by the time they see it, they try and answer before that. I know for a fact they're using some software like that, or just guessing. But the software limits that and actually makes that takes away that sort of factor.
Wow. So if people want to do this, they might want to contact you about that particular software. So you're really a game master, aren't you?
Yeah, I like to think so. This is becoming something that is culture in my classroom. It's just expected. The kids aren't like, wow, it's amazing. It's just like, this is just something Mr. Pearce does on a bi-weekly, monthly basis.
Are your kids face-to-face at school or a mix?
They mostly are now. We had remote at the end of last year, and we had remote just returning after Christmas break. But now we are back face-to-face, and my kids are there in force. I'm splitting them up into 2 spaces and teaching in 2 spaces at once. And it's safe, but not, it's difficult.
Yeah, we've been face-to-face since August at, different times, different parts of classes have had to to go home for a little while and learn from home. But it's great when you can get face to face, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. You see the joy in learning and the smiles and no high fives, but that'll come back one day.
So where does this go? I mean, I could honestly see times where you're a game master and maybe you can have 5,000 or 10,000. I mean, is that where you wish this could head?
I'm not sure. With Canada being so wide, it gets a big time frame difference. I'm reaching into Ontario tomorrow with this game, and it's an hour different, but you go too much further west or east and you start getting quite a bit of time difference. So maybe it's north-south. I could start reaching down below me in the central time zone to more kids in the United States. I also think maybe I start doing more versus matches. So it's more, Manitoba takes on province or this group, or just inter-school, smaller games, but inter-school and more organized, where it's almost like a debate sort of thing, this school versus this school in a debate format, but not a debate, of course, just a knowledge test. So what's your advice for teachers who want to have a inter-school Kahoot contest or something like that? Where do they start? They need to definitely do some testing to figure out how the infrastructure works and how to make it fair for both parties, because Kahoot is based on the speed of answer as part of the scoring. So if you have one group hosting, they need to be on an even playing ground. YouTube does that fairly well because it goes out to a server and then comes back from that server out to everywhere else. Things like video conferencing software, it can be a little bit different with the latency between real time. And Zoom could be laggy for some kids and not for others. Yeah, kind of like that, where I don't know if that's how Zoom works, but I know YouTube has a ingest server, they call it. So it goes from me to a hub and then from the hub out everywhere. So even the kids that are playing in my class directly watch it at the front of the class on YouTube. So like they see the same stream as someone in Toronto might. So it's not any advantage to be in the class with me necessarily, because I'm not sharing my screen directly. It's going through all the way to Toronto and back to ingest server. So that's how I sort of keep it even for the kids that are playing in my classroom. That's fascinating. I hadn't even really thought of that. Because that could be the case with any timed game. I mean, you can have lag. You have somebody who has, high-speed internet versus someone who has not great Wi-Fi. I mean, you see Very that true. When people play Xbox even. Yeah. Some have lag and some don't. Okay, so this is exciting and a whole lot of fun. So tell folks how to contact you. So the best way to contact me is through my Twitter account, Pearce WSD. So at Pearce WSD, which is Winnipeg School Division. It's my professional Twitter account. Well, we will be sharing the links, and this is a lot of fun. I think it was really cool. I just watched what you were doing and looked at some of the information on Twitter. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. What a fun thing for people to do. Thank you, George, for sharing this concept and idea. And teachers, I think this is a great one. This is something that we can do wherever kids are. And I like the idea of using YouTube when possible, but we've also got these other caveats. So thanks, George. Thank you.
Advancement Courses Tournament of Teachers Bracket Challenge is back again for the 4th year in a row. This year's Remember When edition features 32 scenarios that educators both miss and don't miss about classroom life before 2020. Things like taking students on field trips versus hosting class parties, or fire drills derailing your lesson versus a broken air conditioner. Sign up to submit your brackets from now until March 21st. Then come back from March 22nd to 31st to vote for the ones you want to see advance. Enter now and you'll have a chance to win prizes like a $1,000 Amazon gift card and more. This is going to be fun, so join in. Register now at coolcatteacher.com/tournament and let the tournament begin.
If you enjoyed today's 10-Minute Teacher podcast, why not subscribe on iTunes? You can also catch up with Vicki on Twitter at CoolCatTeacher or level up and learn with her blogs and free resources at coolcatteacher.com. Thanks for listening.